This is probably one of those videos where I'm just putting a pin in it because it's very obvious, or I think has been really obvious, that this is the direction PlayStation is going to have to go, because the chess that they put themselves in, depending on games like Call of Duty to fund a lot of their business operations, is now one where they actually are forced to play the game as intended or as they've set it up. According to this Insider Gaming article, it says PlayStation to continue focusing on live service games. They never lost focus, to be very honest. In fact, they are very keen on doing it, to the point where, according to reports last year, they were planning to invest more in their live service games than traditional games starting that fiscal year. They were going to move their investment from what it used to be before, or they had started actually from 88% in traditional games. That's basically their single player titles. And then they wanted to go ahead for that fiscal year to move it to 55%. And then they planned on eventually moving that 55% to 60%. PlayStation is now majority a live service development publisher. It has its single player titles, but it's going to be doing that. You see what they've done here, ladies and gentlemen, and I have to point this out, is they've actually played their audience. They've used semantics to go ahead and make their audience think that they're still, in a sense, serving them as the priority, whereas their more profitable titles, or potentially more profitable titles, will go day and dates to other platforms. So you see what they've done there. It's a sleight of hand. Let's go and read the article, and then we're going to talk about this sleight of hand. And I think it's very interesting that anybody who's on the PlayStation platform doesn't really realize that right now they've basically gotten hustled in that regard. I'm not saying that, you're doing anything wrong. You're just not paying very close attention to corporate twist that they've actually played on this whole thing. Mike Straw writes, PlayStation to continue focusing on live service games. And so this is basically going to be their article. It says PlayStation isn't giving up on live service games anytime soon. In a recent interview with Japanese outlet Famitsu, PlayStation's co-CEO Herman Hulst said that the company still believes in a model despite recent hiccups like Concord. Again, relevant articles to this particular thing shows that Sony had delayed 6 of those live service games. So they had planned 12 in total. In moving this budget from 88 to 40 to 50 to 60%, 12 live service games was what they wanted for their FY 2026 calendar. That's not to talk about the potential of more after that, because if 60% of their budget is live service while 40% is single player, then you can almost be guaranteed that maybe the single player studios, the top 4, Naughty Dog, Santa Monica, Insomniac, and Sucker Punch, are going to be pumping out these 4 single player titles. And then almost everybody else, some other studios would probably still, maybe I'm missing a studio somewhere. And then almost everybody else is going to be engaged in live service. Or they'll just punch all that money and dump it into Bungie. And then everybody else gets to split whatever is left over 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years to be able to complete their titles, while these live service games are getting punched out as fast as possible. A lot of people thought that this delay was a cancellation. Man, the way the news actually works and the way PlayStation is very good at wording the narrative, and people are really quick to read the headlines and run away without looking at the fine print. These articles said Sony has delayed half of the 12 PlayStation Live Service games that it planned to release by March 2026. When you go back to that Famitsu article, Herman Hulst is cited as saying the game business is constantly changing due to various factors, including technological advances, new genres, and ways of playing. Hulst said via auto-translation. However, one thing that remains constant is people's desire for game entertainment experiences, and attention to games continues to grow. However, this has also created competition, and like many companies in the industry, we've had to make changes to our business to solidify a more sustainable operating base. Something that Xbox went ahead and took $75 billion and did in one fell swoop, getting themselves Activision Blizzard's Call of Duty, Overwatch. They already had Minecraft on tap and other small live service games in their own coffers. So PlayStation is playing catch up in this regard. Not only that, their subscription service is now a host for this. And so PlayStation's business model is being modified to look like Xbox's business model from a publisher standpoint. Take that to the bank. It's even Herman Hulst that's actually mentioning this, and a lot of PlayStation fans somewhere, somehow, have, in a sense, maybe started to come down a little bit from their mountain that they were sitting on. Oh, great games. Nope, you're not unique in the market anymore. Tim Sweeney came out and exposed the entire gaming industry and said all these big games are being made with high budgets and no one's playing them. Yet, you look at a game like Valheim, you look at some of these games that are small startups, single player games, or even stuff made by Valve, Team Fortress, Dota, League of Legends, that's done by other, I think who's doing League of Legends? I can't remember. And they look at all the other stuff, and these are the games that are basically taking attention. I'm not sitting here chanting and saying that this is the kind of stuff I like. No. I'm just pointing out the reality. So Herman Hulse continues, and the final quote here, according to this article, is we're learning a lot as we establish the ability to develop high-quality live service titles. Oh, my goodness. How times have changed. Within SIE, he said, Helldivers 2 attracted many players through our continuous content provision and achieved results that support the potential of live service titles. Now, I think that the next stretch is for them to start bringing more of these to Xbox. Marathon's going to drop on Xbox. There's just no way they're going to let that game sit on PC and PlayStation. They're looking to replicate a Destiny type deal, so they're going to require that. Now, to the sleight of hand. If you take a very close look at what's going on, they have basically changed up the whole thing. They said these games are their tentpole games, the single player games, basically trying to signal that their heavy investments are in these games, but no longer are there heavy investments anymore on these games that are launching on a delayed timeline. Think about it. But now the games that are taking the most in terms of investment are coming to PC day and date. So somewhere, somehow, the whole thing is warped. You can interpret it however you want. This is my interpretation based on the data that I have. So we're not even going to be talking anymore about PlayStation, tentpole games coming day and date, because that word, what does it even mean? Is it like your signature single player titles that aren't selling as well as your live service games, or aren't being as attention magnetic as your live service games or the games that you're seeking? Or is this something where they will modify after they finally hit a few live service games? I doubt it. I think what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to get as many as possible out there. They've used even some other companies to maintain some level of exclusivity, like with Final Fantasy XIV that they held hostage on the PlayStation platform for the longest time. Well, it came to PC after. Yeah, you know what I mean. But at the end of the day, when you look at other games like Elder Scrolls Online and all these other titles, they're making bank in that regard. And, it's very funny to see. There's a story that's kind of poetic, and Ubisoft is kind of at the center of that story. They had a game called The Division. They did very well in their initial launch, but then they decided that they were going to run away and make a second game, leaving the first game without properly supporting it, because Ubisoft is very, very, they can't focus much. I don't know what's up with that company. Every time they do something, they always want to maybe in some way pursue another trend. So they made a second Division game. Rather than basically, cultivating that community like the Rainbow Six community, they decided they were going to go chase the Star Wars and the Avatar games. Well, those games did not yield as much as they would have, wanted the game to yield. And in the end of the day, what is that, done for them? They're running back to the Division franchise. Everybody's running back to a live service game. This doesn't mean that single player games are going to go away. It just means that the priorities have to change in order for them to be able to make these kinds of games. So PlayStation no longer can be sitting there depending on just its third-party live service titles, which is, effectively, profitable for it. But it's only dependent on console sales. What if console sales start to get diminished? That's what happens because they've put their eggs in one basket. And we'll talk about eggs in one basket hopefully in the next video. Thanks for watching this one. I really appreciate you guys' time and audience. And as recommended by some of y'all, start putting links to these articles in the videos so that y'all can check them out yourselves. Peace out.